Hey, it's Tara here. Happy July. I wanted to share a little process video of some fun ways to decorate stationery, or not stationery, but envelopes with ink pads, stamp ink pads, and kind of get a little faux watercolor look. And it's something that I do kind of often, especially for envelopes that are just plain white, and it's really easy to do. So I thought I'd show you a few techniques for doing that. So get out your ink pads and your white envelopes and, follow along. For all techniques, I'll be using my Stampin' Up! Stampin' pads, and I'm using, for this first one, the colors Pumpkin Pie, Daffodil Delight, Melon Mambo, and Tangerine Tango. And to get started, you'll just want a craft mat or some plastic that you can just put the ink pad directly on, and just stamp it there and get your color down. And then I use my little water bottle to spritz it to mix it up, and I used just the end of the paintbrush to mix it up here. You can leave it as is, but I kind of like to mix it up so it creates different colors, and it looks a little bit better in my opinion, depending on what you're going for. This is, I guess, more of a watercolor look. And then just keep patting the envelope down onto the ink, and just do the same thing for the back. I kind of use this to clean up my workspace rather than putting down fresh ink and doing the whole process over. So it's kind of nice just to use up whatever you have left for the back side. And then when you don't have a lot of water or ink, it kind of gives it a cool pastel look. And so next up, I am using the colors Pacific Point, Tempting Turquoise, Bermuda Bay, and Old Olive. This next technique is good for the folks who don't have a craft mat or plastic or whatnot. You can use those acrylic blocks that you use for your stamps, and instead of you would just do the same thing, but put the stamp pad directly onto the acrylic block, spritz it with water, and pat it down on your envelope. This one is probably one of my favorite techniques. It's a lot easier, it's cleaner, and you can kind of control where you're putting the color. I don't know, both techniques are, really easy to do, fun, and either way you're going to have a really cool envelope once you're finished. And so yeah, you just keep however many colors you have, keep stamping that block, spritzing it with some water, and putting it down onto the envelope. And one thing to keep in mind if you're using these types of envelopes, just like self-adhesive in general, since you're wetting the envelope, the paper gets kind of thin and really easy to tear. And then since there's water involved, if you have self-adhesive envelopes, the self-adhesive starts to get sticky. And in this case, it stuck to my craft mat a little, so when I was trying to pull it up, I ripped it. So just keeping that in mind, that these are really easy to rip. The paper's really, really easy to rip. For the back side, I spritzed the remaining ink on the craft mat, ripped my envelope again, and just did the same thing as the first technique, plus ripping. All right, next up I'm using the inks Pumpkin Pie, Tangerine Mango, and Rich Razzleberry. I'm kind of obsessed with these color names. They're so bizarre. So this is going to be another craft mat, plastic, whatever you have. Stamp the ink pad down, pat the paper, and do basically the same thing as the first technique. For this one, I did use twice the amount of ink, so instead of just stamping each color once, I stamped each color twice, and that is kind of fun to do, mix it up a little bit. And then on the back side, when I was using up the remaining ink, there was a lot of white spots that I couldn't get, so I just wanted to show you that you can go in with a paintbrush and kind of fill in the white spots and just do that instead of struggling like I am here. It is just easier. Again, there's not a lot of ink or a lot of water, so it's kind of more of a pastel, lighter color. But yeah, using a paintbrush is easy peasy. And the last technique I have for you, I'm using the colors Tangerine Tango, Melon Mambo, and Real Red. Not sure why red got off with a very boring name, but I am kind of upset about that. So for this one, I'm going to be using a paintbrush to color the entire envelope. You can stamp your ink pad down wherever you like, craft mat, acrylic block, plastic, on your face, I guess, if you maybe enjoy that. And then here I just, again, spritz the ink with water, and I'm using a paintbrush to just paint over the envelope. Pretty straightforward, and you can see all of the brush strokes here while the ink and paper is still wet, but it will, once it dries, that kind of goes away, and I'll show you how that looks once it dries, so don't be like scared of that. And you can use each ink pad individually or mix up the colors like I am here. Mixing all of them together created a really pretty pink. I really kind of like that color a lot. But yeah, so just kind of experiment with that, you know, different colors, just doing different things, and you know, it's all good. And then I just go back in with a paintbrush and cover up any white spots or whatnot. And so this is the first envelope we did with just the ink pad on the craft mat technique. Next up is the acrylic block technique and the very ripped envelope. And then the technique with more colors and the paintbrush technique. And you can see here the paintbrush strokes are pretty much invisible. So thank you so much for watching. Bye!